A media storm has once again erupted from the heart of the British royal family, this time not due to a scandalous affair or a controversial memoir, but because of a birthday gift. It may sound simple, but no one could have expected that on July 17th, 2025, Camilla's 78th birthday, King Charles III would bestow upon his second wife an honor never before granted in the history of the kingdom, the title of Vice Admiral of the United Kingdom. A title heavy with symbolism, traditionally reserved for the military and almost exclusively for men, had now been placed in the hands of a woman once labeled by the entire nation as the other woman. Not long after Buckingham Palace issued the official announcement, Britain trembled. International media immediately dubbed it the most controversial birthday gift in modern royal history. Sensational headlines flooded front pages. Has King Charles gone too far? Camilla, Vice Admiral or symbol of misguided favoritism. And even a chilling line from The Guardian, a slap in the face to Princess Anne. Because yes, it was Anne, Charles's own sister, who had dedicated her entire life to the Royal Armed Forces, having held the honorary rank of Rear Admiral for many years and earned the deep respect of the entire military. And yet now, Camilla, who has never served in any branch of the military, had been named Vice Admiral, outranking Anne in symbolic stature. To many, this marked a breakthrough. A woman once mocked by the public, blamed for Princess Diana's heartbreak, had risen to a position of unprecedented honor, becoming a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and soft power in the stormy world of royalty. But to many others, it was a blatant insult to military tradition, to the women who truly sacrificed for their country, and especially to Princess Anne, a woman who never sought titles, only toiled quietly in service. Even within the royal family, the atmosphere grew as tense as a tightened string. Rumors swirled that Anne had flatly declined the invitation to Camilla's birthday celebration, and that Prince William appeared clearly uncomfortable, caught between his father and his aunt. What was meant to be a reunion tinged with celebration turned into a spectacle for the media, with every glance, handshake, and moment of awkward silence between family members dissected under the microscope. No one denies that Camilla has endured a rocky road to gaining recognition in her role as queen. From public outcast, she slowly became King Charles's trusted partner. However, the lingering question remains, was that honorary title truly a tribute to her resilience, or merely King Charles's way of easing the guilt he's carried for decades since betraying Diana? People also began questioning the true motives behind the king's decision. Was this Charles's way of reasserting his authority, proving that he could bestow a prestigious title on whomever he chose, even Camilla? Or was it a sign that the king was being driven more by emotion than reason, and no longer maintaining the necessary separation between personal affection and public duty? What seemed to be a simple birthday gift has now carved a fresh crack into the already fractured wall of the British monarchy. Once again, the simmering tensions between tradition and progress, between bloodline and chosen love, between feminism and privilege, have erupted with full force. What do you think of King Charles's decision? Did he act out of love and fairness, or was this a mistake that only deepened the royal family's divisions? Leave a comment with 1 if you support Charles's decision, or 0 if you stand with Princess Anne. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the latest developments from inside the British royal court, where every move has the power to reshape history. Under a blood-red sunset on the horizon, the ceremony seemed to conclude with the usual royal solemnity, until suddenly an image appeared that cast a heavy silence over the entire atmosphere in stunned awe. The moment that truly made the entire nation of Britain hold its breath was when the submarine HMS Vanguard silently drifted across the waters of Faz Lane, carrying not only the royal family's glory, but also a surprising gift King Charles had prepared for the woman once doubted and despised by the entire kingdom, Camilla. On the deck, amid crashing waves and gusting winds, Charles looked into his wife's eyes and solemnly declared, "From this day forth, Camilla, my queen, shall officially hold the honorary title of Vice Admiral of the Royal Navy." The crowd was astonished. The media was stunned. No one could have expected that at an event assumed to be purely ceremonial, Charles would thrust Camilla into the spotlight with a symbolic title never before granted to a woman once referred to by two bitter words: the other woman. Within less than 24 hours, the front pages of major newspapers erupted with headlines. Camilla, from the shadows to naval icon. Feminism on a submarine deck. Love titles and the redemption of a woman hated by the nation. Camilla wept. In that moment, she was no longer the woman haunted by Diana's shadow, no longer the subject of whispers at royal banquets, no longer the name that sparked endless controversy in the media. With the Vice Admiral title, Camilla felt a recognition she had waited decades for, a title that granted no power, no military command, but carried immense symbolic weight. Camilla was now not just the king's wife, but an official part of the royal institution, acknowledged, respected, and standing alongside legendary names in royal history. Charles looked at her, full of pride but unable to hide a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He understood all too well the price of this recognition. Charles was not naive enough to believe the kingdom would rejoice. He knew he had just reopened an unhealed wound, a scar of Diana's memory, the pain of the public, and the eternal question: does Camilla truly deserve this? Because this title was not simply a royal reward for a spouse, it was a declaration, a statement that despite all the controversy, slander, and contempt Camilla had endured, and she was the one he chose to walk beside him to the end. It was also a challenge to public opinion, to the royal family, and perhaps even to his own past. And that was when the question emerged, echoing in the hearts of every British citizen. Does Camilla truly deserve it? Does she deserve the title, the status, the forgiveness, and even the admiration? A woman who had weathered countless storms, yet had once ignited the very storm herself. A woman who broke the heart of Princess Diana, the eternal symbol of compassion, only to now be elevated as a model of resilience and royal dedication. Camilla's emotions in that moment may have been genuine. Her smile and tears may have come from the heart. But for the public, forgiveness is never easy, especially when the memory of Diana remains vivid as if it were only yesterday. And though the title grants no actual power, its symbolic weight is immense, a signal that Charles's reign now officially recognizes Camilla as an irreplaceable pillar. Perhaps that is why the man, who once loved against the institution, defied his own mother to marry Camilla, could not fully savor the joy. He is walking a tightrope between loyalty to his current wife and the shadow of the wife who passed, between the desire to restore a fractured image and the risk of hurting those who still love Diana. And in the blood-red sunset over Faslane's waters, only he knows the true price of that historic moment. Camilla now holds the title. But the hearts of the people, whether she can ever win them over, that is the hardest battle of all. And perhaps the final battle in the life of a woman who has always lived in the twilight zone of royal history. What do you think? Is Camilla's resilience enough to compensate for the losses she helped cause? Is the Vice Admiral title a symbol of progress, or merely a carefully staged performance to mask cracks that have deeply fractured the foundation of the monarchy? Right after the moment when the HMS Vanguard submarine silently drifted through the waters of Faslane to the solemn sounds of ceremonial music, while Britain was still resonating with the emotion of the memorial, a new wave of reaction quietly began to rise from within the royal family itself. Not from the media, not from the public, but from a figure long perceived as silent, yet in truth the one who holds the unyielding spirit of monarchical discipline, Princess Anne. With over 20,000 public engagements, dozens of military titles, and a persistent presence spanning over half a century, Anne is not merely a royal figure. She is a symbol of commitment, of order, and especially of military tradition, forged through blood, sweat, and unwavering loyalty. The Vice Admiral title is not a gift. To Anne, it is a reward for tireless service in a spirit of dedication that transcends status. But when that title was given to Camilla as a birthday gift at such a sensitive moment, it felt like a slap in the face to the women who had bled on the battlefield. No longer able to stay silent, Anne personally wrote a letter to King Charles III and the Royal Military Council. The letter wasn't long, but every word was sharp and resolute. She not only questioned the criteria for awarding the title to Camilla, but directly criticized the commercialization and politicization of military symbolism, something that should have been preserved as the soul of the nation. If today a military title is used to pacify public criticism or polish a media image, then tomorrow, where will the trust of all service members lie? Quoted directly from the letter, which is said to have left several council members in complete silence for minutes after reading. But Anne didn't stop at the letter. She chose a direct approach, no evasions, by going straight to Balmoral, where King Charles and Queen Camilla were vacationing, to confront them. No prior notice, no warning. Anne walked in like a storm. The conversation began with tension as tight as a drawn bowstring. Camilla, as usual, tried to smile and maintain composure, but Anne's gaze allowed no room for appeasement. She looked directly at her brother, the man she had stood beside at hundreds of military events, and asked, "Do you realize how many women who fought would be offended by this?" King Charles, already in a fragile state of health and under constant pressure from both within the family and the public, initially tried to justify himself that this was merely a symbolic title, that Camilla had worked hard in her role as queen. But Anne didn't let him finish. She raised her hand and bluntly cut him off. None of them earned titles by wearing dresses and smiling for the cameras. Silence fell. Camilla no longer smiled. She tried to speak, insisting that she merely followed Charles's decision and never requested the title. But Anne coldly replied, "You could have declined it." The argument escalated further when Camilla countered that even Princess Diana had once received an honorary title despite not having served. But Anne snapped, "Diana never received a military title. And if you bring her up as an excuse, then this conversation ends here." That line poured fuel on the fire. Charles stood up abruptly, asking both to calm down. But by then, the emotional damage had exceeded the point of control. This was no longer about a title. It was about honor, about justice, about the trust Anne had upheld all her life. In the end, Anne stood up, said no goodbyes, and left Balmoral in less than 45 minutes. But the impact of her confrontation continued to echo through the ancient stone halls of the palace. Now, as the public begins to hear leaks about the letter and the Balmoral confrontation, yet another wave of debate has ignited. Is Princess Anne being too rigid, too conservative in her view of military titles? Or is she the only one still preserving the principles and dignity of a royal family that once symbolized the indomitable spirit of the British Empire? Some say Anne is a remnant of a bygone era where honor came before interest and where titles came with responsibility. But others argue that in a world changing every day, if no one upholds core values, the monarchy will crumble from within without any need for a revolution from the outside. That question, though still unanswered, continues to linger in the minds of the British people. Between a woman who has lived her entire life for duty and a queen crowned by marriage who truly deserves to bear the symbol of the nation's military. We do not yet know what will happen next. But one thing is certain, once Princess Anne has spoken, she will not back down. For her, the title of Vice Admiral is not just a badge pinned on the chest. It is an oath of honor that cannot be insulted by anyone, not even the Queen, not even the King himself. The media storm did not stop at whispered conversations in palace corridors or the coldness in Princess Anne's gaze. On the contrary, it erupted violently after a leaked audio recording spread rapidly across social media. In that recording, a voice believed to be Princess Anne's coldly criticized the decision to appoint Camilla as honorary colonel-in-chief of the Grenadier Guards. Though the royal family has not confirmed its authenticity, the tone, the dryness of each word, and especially the phrase, "a slap in the face to those who bled," stunned the public. Within hours, the hashtag #honor is not a gift topped the trending list across the UK. Veterans, especially female soldiers who once served in harsh conditions, began to speak out. They shared photos, memories, and scars from the battlefield with a mix of anger and bitterness. One former female officer wrote, "I held my teammate as she died in Basra. What did Camilla ever do? Sip wine behind curtains while we fought for the country?" Those words struck directly at the image Charles tried to build for his wife, an image clad in military uniforms purely for symbolic purposes. Celebrities did not remain silent. A veteran actress who had participated in many charity campaigns for veterans shared, Camilla may be queen, but military honor is not an accessory. It is forged from blood, tears, and iron discipline. Public opinion split into two camps. One side defended tradition, arguing that such titles must belong to those who truly served, not for political convenience. The other side, a minority but still present, believed this was a step toward modernizing the monarchy and easing internal power fractures. Meanwhile, the press no longer maintained neutrality. Daily Mail, a paper known for its close ties to the royal family, published a shocking headline: "Camilla wears the uniform, but who truly deserves it?" The article retraced Princess Anne's entire service, her active role in the Royal Navy, and her tireless participation in remembrance events for fallen soldiers. In contrast, Camilla has never undergone any formal military training. Photos of her in ceremonial uniform are now enlarged, scrutinized down to every detail, from the way she wears her medals to her incorrect posture. The Telegraph went straight to the point. This is not about Camilla being the king's wife. It is a matter of morality and justice for those who sacrificed. The peak of public outrage came the following morning, when around 50 veterans, both men and women, gathered in front of Buckingham Palace. They did not shout. They did not cause damage. They simply wore old uniforms, stood in rows, and held up signs that read, "I served. Did you? No blood, no honor." And especially the familiar slogan, #Honor is not a gift, a powerful image that could not be ignored. The event was broadcast live. Morning news programs simultaneously reported on the protest, analyzing this silent but weighty act. A former sergeant spoke in front of the camera with a choked voice. "We are not against the monarchy. We just want justice for the comrades we've lost." That statement rang out like a wake-up call, not only to the public, but also to the shaken royal family. The pressure rose to the point where many members of parliament were forced to speak out. Some called for a review of the process of awarding military titles, while others subtly questioned Camilla's actual influence in critical decisions. On various forums, people began to wonder, was giving the title to Camilla merely a symbolic move, or a sign that a soft power is manipulating Britain's oldest institution? Yet amid the surging wave of opposition, one question remains troubling. Is the public being too harsh on Camilla? Did she truly want the title, or was it a decision made unilaterally by Charles to strengthen his wife's position? Some media experts suggest that society's angry response may have been driven more by emotion than by reason. Perhaps the public has never truly forgiven Camilla for the past with Diana, and now they just needed a reason to explode, a social commentator wrote in The Guardian. But is that reason justified enough to turn a military title, something sacred, into a new battlefield for old wounds? The royal family now faces its most difficult question. How can they honor tradition without abandoning those who bled for the nation? And Charles, amid an intensifying political and emotional storm, must ask himself, can honor truly be bestowed, or must it be earned through calloused hands and the silent sorrow on the faces of forgotten veterans? Everything seemed to fall silent in that fateful moment. As the HMS Vanguard's submarine quietly drifted through the waters of Faslane, carrying with it the deep secrets of a shaken monarchy, the British people began to sense clearly that the worst storm was not yet over. And they were right, because shortly after, at Buckingham Palace, a closed-door meeting was convened under absolute secrecy. King Charles III, his face sorrowful after a series of relentless upheavals, urgently summoned his entire senior advisory team on military, media, and policy matters on a cold morning, without any press release. The atmosphere in the Grand West Chamber of the palace was thick with silence. No one spoke. No one dared to open their mouth because everyone knew this meeting was not for debate or negotiation. This was the time to make a life or death decision for what remained of the British royal family's reputation. From the military side, immense pressure kept pouring in. Queen Camilla's abuse of power, her unilateral interference in the military remembrance activities in Portsmouth, and the exclusion of Princess Charlotte from the guest list had sparked outrage not only within military ranks, but also among the public. A report from the General Staff showed that hundreds of senior officers and generals had signed a letter urging the royal family to reconsider the Queen's role in defense ceremonies. A petition rapidly spread throughout the military, demanding the revocation of Camilla's honorary military titles, namely her colonel-in-chief designations for several elite units, on the grounds that they no longer reflect dignity or solidarity with the troops. The advisors in that room knew full well, if no action was taken, the consequences would spread far beyond a mere media or personal scandal. The credibility of the military and the loyalty of the people were at risk. "We are standing at a historic crossroads," one of the advisors told Charles, voice deep and resolute. "If your Majesty does not act in time, the consequences will be immeasurable. The monarchy's credibility will be eroded to its core." And so, after many hours of silent deliberation, Charles made what was believed to be the most painful decision since he ascended the throne. He would officially revoke Camilla's authority to use her military titles at defense and remembrance events. Her colonel-in-chief titles would be retained only as a personal symbol, a purely honorary designation, but would no longer carry any real or ceremonial weight. In other words, she was removed from the military life of the royal family. When the statement was drafted and delivered to Camilla, she said nothing for several minutes. But then the tears began to fall, one by one, quietly, painfully. For nearly 3 decades, Camilla had stood by Charles through storms, endured the public scorn, and was branded the other woman who destroyed the iconic marriage between Diana and the prince. She had once believed that upon becoming queen, all those years of endurance would be repaid. But no. Now the very man for whom she had sacrificed everything, King Charles III, was the one to strip away the only title that made her feel she had a true place within the royal system. "You promised to protect me," Camilla uttered through tears, not shouting, not reproachful, just a total collapse in her gaze. "After all I've done for you, you choose to turn your back on me because of public opinion? Because of anonymous letters and a black dress of Diana's?" Charles stood motionless. No one in the room dared to intervene, not a single advisor spoke. They let her collapse in solitude in a battle she now fully understood she had completely lost. For Camilla, this was not just a political decision. It was a slap in the face to years of effort to build her image, the end of her aspiration to be recognized as a true queen. And in that very moment, the entire United Kingdom once again asked a haunting question. Was Charles truly fair in choosing to sacrifice the woman most loyal to him in order to save the royal family's image? Or was he simply too weak, letting pressure from the public and military drive him to make the most painful decision of all for Camilla? That question, with no immediate answer, still lingers in the air of Buckingham, where ancient walls can no longer conceal the cracks that are spreading wider by the day. For once a title can be stripped away so easily, one must ask, is there anything truly everlasting within this royal family? Under the pale sunset cast over Windsor Castle, after the HMS Vanguard submarine quietly cut through the waters of Faslane, carrying the echoes of a monarchy in turmoil, the silence suddenly grew heavier than ever. It was in that silence that a familiar face disappeared from public life in a calculated manner. Queen Camilla. No longer stepping out of golden carriages, no more rustling silk gowns on marble steps at state receptions. Camilla, the woman who once fought for the spotlight at all costs, now chose to retreat deep into the shadows. Since Princess Anne's 75th birthday celebration and the inevitable aftershocks within the royal family, Camilla seemed to have been pushed out of the center of power. Her current engagements are now limited to quieter charitable organizations, primarily focused on the Rifles Association, where she was once honored as the supreme patron. But it was precisely there that a cold and telling detail was noticed. The honorary title of Vice Admiral, once ceremoniously bestowed upon Camilla as a symbol of royal stature, now lay as an old medal tucked away in a drawer at Raymond House, her private residence in Wiltshire, completely removed from royal protocol. No one mentioned that title again. No ceremony was held to honor her as before. It seemed everything had been buried under the dust of doubt, controversy, and disappointment. Meanwhile, Princess Anne, the embodiment of steadfastness and principle, chose to face the wave of controversy head-on. In a rare interview with the BBC, she did not avoid any questions regarding Camilla or her role in the royal family. With her familiar calm demeanor, Anne stated, "Military honor cannot be a gift. It is something forged, sacrificed for, and preserved with blood and sweat. No one can receive it simply for marrying the right person." That statement was like a cold blade, cutting away any last hope that reconciliation might exist between Anne and Camilla. Yet Anne did not hide her exhaustion, emphasizing, "I am no longer angry, but I will not pretend to forget." That is Anne's way. No grudge, but no compromise. Amid that silence, keen observers noticed a sad truth. The distance between Camilla, Anne, and King Charles is now undeniable. Family gatherings that once brimmed with warmth and laughter have turned cold and strained. Anne often arrives late or leaves early. Charles tries to ease the tension, but frequently fails. And Camilla, though always smiling politely, consistently sits apart from her sister-in-law, as though a wordless protocol of separation had taken root. The rift doesn't end with the older generation. Prince William and Princess Kate, once known for their neutrality, are now clearly taking a stance. At private parties, Kate is no longer seen chatting cheerfully with Camilla. William, who once reluctantly accepted his stepmother for his father's sake, now maintains a clear distance, as if to shield his children from lingering shadows of the past. Both Charlotte and George are rarely brought to events where Camilla is present. This is a clear sign that trust has faded. So, can Camilla regain the trust of the public and the royal family through her quiet charitable work? Perhaps, as she still regularly appears at community clinics, veterans' hospitals, and shelters for victims of domestic abuse. But perhaps not, because the wound she caused, or is believed to have caused, to Diana, to Diana's children, and to the fragile sense of integrity among the British public is a scar too deep, too difficult to heal. And so Camilla, the woman once cherished by Charles, once crowned queen consort, is now gradually being pushed to the margins of the very palace she longed to enter. When photos of her at charitable events appear only in the middle pages of newspapers, when the media no longer refer to her as Her Majesty with absolute deference, but instead use the cold phrase, Camilla Parker Bowles, the king's wife, she must herself admit, power is the most fleeting thing in the world. Public opinion is divided, the royal family fragmented, and those involved struggle to smile. But somewhere behind the heavy stone doors, the question still echoes, not only in Camilla's mind, but in the hearts of the British people. Can someone who caused such deep pain ever truly make amends? Or are all current efforts merely a belated performance, one no longer worth believing? And if the answer is no, then Camilla will have to learn to live with that, in silence, in solitude, and in the immense shadow of a woman long gone but never absent, Diana. The end of the story does not lie in the gift itself, but in the cracks it inadvertently revealed. King Charles's birthday present to Queen Camilla, though born of love and deep gratitude, became the spark that ignited simmering tensions within the royal family. To Princess Anne, it was not merely a symbol of favoritism, but a painful reminder of her decades of sacrifice, sacrifices now overshadowed by the glory of a woman who was once the other woman. As for the public, that gift tore apart the carefully painted illusion of unity the palace had worked so hard to uphold. It raised a painful question. Where does the honor of the royal family truly lie when personal affection can outweigh centuries of traditional duty? Yet amid all the controversy, there remains a faint glimmer of hope. It is through these very clashes that we witness the depth of loyalty, the silent struggle for a cause greater than oneself, for family, for the kingdom. And it is also in these moments of confrontation that love is tested by the very price of loneliness. So what about you? Whose side are you on in this uncompromising standoff? Leave a comment. Press 1 for Anne, the symbol of honor. Press 0 for Camilla, the embodiment of love that defies convention. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss any of the untold stories from the British royal family.